Howdy friends, and welcome back to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. My name is Teresa Elise, and today I'm going to talk about the different kinds of bats for the pottery wheel. There are three main kinds of bats that I use in my studio, so we're going to talk about those three. First up, we have this classic plastic bat. Next, I have a bat system made of wooden Masonite, and finally, hydro bats made of plaster. Each one has its own uses and special properties. Before we start throwing, I want to take a moment to talk about storing and taking care of your bats. I store my plastic bats and Masonite bats on their side at an angle with room to breathe on a bamboo dish rack. This helps to keep them from warping. It's not a good idea to stack your plastic or Masonite bats vertically, however, I do stack my hydro plaster bats. They're really thick and heavy, and I'm fairly certain they are not at risk to warp from stacking. I'll update this if I ever notice that I've warped them. Under every bat, I use a damp bat mate. This is a soft chamois that helps keep every kind of bat that I use from wobbling or sliding around on the wheel head while I'm throwing. First up, I have a classic speedball plastic bat. These have two sides of bat pin holes. I have no idea what the other one is for, but my wheel fits the side with the 3 notches. The clay sticks to these without issue. If the surface of the bat was really wet to start, the clay could hydroplane off. Throwing on a plastic bat is pretty basic. It's almost the same as throwing directly on the wheel head. The plastic is a smooth surface that does not absorb any water. As long as you take care of your plastic bats and avoid warping them, they are reliable bats. They come in a large variety of different sizes. I'm using a 14-inch bat that is the same size as my wheel head. Plastic bats come in both round and square. I haven't ever thrown on a square bat, but there's something in me that is resistant and afraid to stub my fingers on a square bat. It just seems wrong for it to be square and go in circles to me. You have to cut your work off of a plastic bat. I like to make the cut with my Mud Tools cutoff wire right after I finish throwing. Piece on the plastic bat will have a rim that dries faster than the bottom if you don't store or wrap your work properly. The plastic bottom is like a plastic cover until you can flip the piece over. This can be especially tricky if you throw pots with a large base like plates. Final pro for the plastic bats, they're very easy to clean up, except sometimes the undersides have a lot of crevices and cannot be as easy to clean up. Up next, I have my Masonite bat system from Dirty Girls Tools. There are a lot of different brands and types of Masonite bats and systems, but they're all essentially the same surface. Masonite is a type of compressed wood. Masonite bats take extra care. If you soak them, keep them wet, stack them flat, or generally disrespect them, you're probably going to have a bad time with these. These bats will warp pretty easily with neglect, but if you can throw without a splash pan full of water and you take time to wipe them clean and store them on their edges before you leave your studio at night, they can last a really good long time. These swell when they're wet, so sometimes people have wiggle issues between their master bat and their inserts. I can say that I've never had this problem, I've only ever heard of it in legend. After throwing, I will use a cutoff wire to cut the piece off the Masonite bat as well. With these bats, the drying is a bit more even, especially if the bats were bone dry when you started throwing and you didn't throw with a ton of water. The wood will absorb water, and the piece will be more likely to pop off easily and much smoother than it would be on a plastic bat. I keep a close eye on the work I throw on my Masonite bats. Ideally, I want to flip the work off the bat and onto a wear board as soon as it is possible to do so. I then immediately clean and store my bats on a bamboo dish rack. I never want to leave the work on these bats overnight, and I never put these bats into my damp box, as either situation could cause the bat to warp from excessive moisture. I've used larger Masonite bats in the past, and I no longer have them because they warped. The larger the piece of wood, the harder it is to keep the bat from warping, and throwing plates on Masonite without warping is tricky business. If you need a bunch of bats to throw large quantities of cylinders, like something around the ballpark shape of a mug, a small Masonite bat system like the one from Dirty Girls Pottery Tools can't be beat. Finally, the last kind of bat I use is a plaster hydro bat. I ordered mine from the ceramicshot.com and I've been really happy with them. These are very useful, but they do come with their own sets of challenges. I didn't in this video, but it's usually a good idea to run a wet sponge over your hydro bat before throwing, especially if the bat is bone dry. These bats are made of plaster, so they're absorbing a lot of moisture from the bottom. If your clay is too hard and the bat is too dry, it can sometimes be tricky to get the clay to stick. If you throw with a lot of wet slip, the slip can firm up on the bat outside of the piece and get in your way a little bit. These bats are heavy, much heavier than any of the other bats I have in my studio. Where the hydro bat really shines in its usefulness is in wide bottom forms such as plates. Since the bat is absorbing a lot of moisture, you don't need to cut off your work. You do, however, need to make a groove around the edge of your piece with the sharp side of a wooden rib or whatever tool suits your fancy or happens to be close enough. So as long as you have a nice angle for release, the work will pop off the hydro bat when it's ready to trim. No cutting wire required. This is really great for plates because you end up with an evenly leather hard piece ready for trimming with a perfectly level bottom. If you aren't throwing wide bottomed forms like plates, the hydro bats are bulky and heavy, so you could technically live without them. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, guys. I hope I was able to shed some light on the different kinds of bats and what makes each of them special and how they're used in my studio and maybe how you can use them in yours. If you'd like to see a weekly art video, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. To help support the channel, consider becoming a patron of my work at patreon.com/bluenosetrading. Remember that you have great ideas worth exploring, drink lots of water, and I will see y'all next week.